So my number
Yeah.
one film that shaped my coming of age experience is Tarzan, the Disney animated film from 1999. This is directed by Chris Buck and Kevin Lima, starring the voices of Tony Goldwyn, Minnie Driver, Brian Blessed, Glenn Close, and Rosie O'Donnell. The plot summary: a man raised by gorillas must decide where he belongs when he discovers he is a human. Much like the title implies, and the summary is an adaptation, obviously, of Edgar Rice Burroughs' Tarzan stories, Disney's version of this. So this is a movie, came out in 99, saw it in theaters. I think this is the last sort of masterpiece of the 90s Disney animation, in my view. Saw it going into my senior year of high school, and it really resonated with me, a lot of the themes in this film around what it means to come of age, what Tarzan was dealing with in this film at various points. Something that I was also feeling a lot around that time, where you are really trying to figure out who you are, the path that you want to be on versus expectations other people might have of you, and you have to find your place in that world, which is a lot of the things that Tarzan has to
Mhm.
do in this version of the story. So I have a lot more to say on this, but I'm just curious what your experience is with this film.
Yeah, I never watched this movie. I'd heard of it, as kind of the final movie and that in that Disney Renaissance period of being amazing. And yeah, it totally lived up to that. Like this movie is from on an animation level is just beautiful
Stunning,
and
yeah.
incredibly done. Like that whole sequence of when we get introduced to the girl and the hyenas and everybody are attacking, like that is like a master class in animation and just filmmaking in general. But yeah, the themes of the movie, which I'm very excited to hear more about from you, are everything about coming of age encapsulated from, leaving home, learning to be an adult, falling in love, finding who
Hmm.
you are. Like all of those things are captured beautifully in the movie. And a Phil Collins score to
Yeah.
go with.
Yeah, which I think that actually is where I think the hearts of this movie really are in his songs. And I'll say,
Yeah.
like, I'm not a huge Phil Collins fan.
No,
Like,
same.
Genesis is okay. He's an English rock star for people that are not familiar with Phil Collins. He was in Genesis, which is a big English pop band in the 70s and 80s, and then went off on his solo career. So I wasn't excited for Phil Collins to kind of come in here and do a Disney film, but I will say these are some of my favorite songs in any Disney film, and
Mm,
two of the song sequences, the Son of Man sequence where it
mm,
shows him kind of growing up and turning him from kid Tarzan to adult Tarzan, and
beautiful.
then the Strangers Like Me song as well, where he's sort of the humans come and he's learning all about the world, and it's really captures very well that feeling of the quest for knowledge and learning new things that you have as a child, where all you want to do is keep learning more and more and more, because that is a way that I think that is part of coming of age, like learning more about the world. And also that also touches, that song too speaks about him falling in love for the first time with Jane. And the beauty and how they handle the music in this film is the characters don't sing. It's Phil Collins singing, and he's either an omnipotent narrator, like in Son of Man, sort of describing what Tarzan is going through, or in Strangers Like Me, he's singing as if he was Tarzan's inner monologue. And for
Mm,
me, for some reason, it hits a lot more this version of a musical where the characters are not singing.
mm,
It feels a lot more emotional to me than because there is that a little bit of like a distance on the
right.
characters, and then it feels like this is another character sort of coming in and talking about the themes and what the characters are thinking. It moves me a lot more, along with a lot of the lyrics of what these songs really do talk about, how these are all, especially during the Son of Man sequence, that is about you having to go out there on your own to learn these things. Like, no one's really going to teach you. You're going out on your own, and that's how you're going to discover who you are. Someone can't do that for you, even though in the film, Kerchak, who's the gorilla, his basically adopted father, has expectations for him of like who, okay, you're not an ape, right? You're a human, and I'm always going to kind of keep a distance from you there. Or if you have to then be, take over the ape tribe, and you're just one of the apes, which is not necessarily something Tarzan wants to do. He's unsure.
Mm,
And one of my favorite sequences of that song as well is at the end when he's struggling throughout the movie to be a gorilla, and slowly in that song he's finding things that only he can do as a human.
right.
He's building a shelter for his mom. He's discovering tools, like all these things that make him an individual and make him Tarzan and not just one of the other gorillas, and stand out in a positive way. Because a lot of things is when you're a kid, you want to fit in. I definitely felt that a lot too. Like, you
Right.
don't want to be the different kid. You want to be the kid who fits in with everyone else. And Tarzan struggles with that in this film because he can't fit in. He's not one of the gorillas. But
Right.
then when you realize is you're not supposed to fit in. I mean, you want to fit in, you know, right? You want to be part of a society, but it's who you are as an individual. What makes you different is actually your strengths. And in that sequence, I think he learns that. And then the final part of that sequence, there's the gorilla tribe sort of walking on the jungle floor. And all of a sudden, Kerchak, who's like his father figure who never wants to give him the time of day, he sort of looks up and there's a shadow that shoots across the gorillas. And it's Tarzan who can go further and faster than the gorillas because he
Mm-hmm.
discovered how to swing on vines. And then there's this fantastic, you mentioned the animation. They developed this new technology called deep canvas, where it's almost like there's
Ah,
the camera can move through the 2D art in a way that they'd invented for this film. And then Tarzan just like surfing through the vines and through the trees. It's so amazing. But again, he's like surpassing the father because he discovered something only he can do, which
yeah.
is a lot about what it means to grow up.
Yeah, it's pretty magical. And I think the other piece of this is like a lot of coming of age is about kind of leaving home and,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, becoming your own person. And we've touched that theme across our movies. I think this movie also touches upon building a stronger relationship with your home as well.
Mm-hmm.
All of the moments in the early part of the movie between Tarzan and the mother, the gorilla, they're so moving and tender the way she looks at him and the way she protects him and stands up against even her own husband, the
Mm-hmm.
gorilla. Like all of that is also so incredible. And it sort of reaffirms that, at least in my experience, your coming of age and becoming your own person will only be richer if you come from, if you're lucky enough, I suppose, to come from a home that gives you that kind of love and that kind of support, which he has,
Mm-hmm.
and the two might seem opposite, that you're sort of becoming your own person and you're leaving home. But the truth is that can only happen if you were supported and loved, at least in my experience,
Mm-hmm.
I think. And I think the movie really captures that.
No, it definitely does. There's even some lines in that song I was just talking about around you're
Yeah.
finding your place among the people that you love.
Yeah.
And that's what'll, you know, even though you have to take the actions, it's having that support system is what helps you find who you are. And I think you're hitting something too about, you know, him finding his home in the jungle. I mean, a difference that, not that I've read the original Tarzan series of books, but in the original series, Tarzan does leave and goes back to England, and that is a lot of, the author was a big, you know, racist guy. So there's a lot of horrible themes in the original books about Englishmen versus natives and all these things like that, which Disney
Mm.
obviously strips out. But what I love about this version of Tarzan is society is saying you got to go back to England. You know, he realizes his parents are humans, puts on the suit, is going back and deciding, you know what, my place is actually somewhere else because this is what, you know, my genetics are, what people saying. I need to go back to England. I'm an Englishman. But then at the end, he realizes, no, my home is in the jungle. And
Yeah.
I need to lead this gorilla tribe. That's who I am. And he decides to stay, which is, I think, even more powerful than what the original story had with him leaving. And the fact that then Jane and her father also decide to join him too shows again that like they love Tarzan, and it's not about what, again, society sort of tells them they have to do. Like
Yeah.
Tarzan goes off and he could have making all these choices, but he chooses to stay with his real family and the people that actually do love him, which are the gorillas and his mom.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a whole other level of the movie, I think, of just, like they say, like home is where love is and home is where the heart is. It sounds
Mm-hmm.
kind of corny, but I think it's quite true that you don't have to be necessarily with the people who look like you, who grew up with you, or what have you. We are living in a complicated time where, on one hand, it's all about inclusivity, but on the other hand, it's also not, because you're
Right.
supposed to shut everybody else out and only just be with your own tribe, if you will.
Right.
And
Right.
that can be true for sure. But I think,
Mm-hmm.
in my mind, you always have to look deeper and understand about, okay, what are you actually made of? What, and that support and love can come from anywhere. And you got to be open to that. And I think this movie captures that, and the story captures that.
Yeah, definitely made of not only from like a genetic level, but like who raised, like the
Yeah,
gorillas who were raised, that is his culture. That is what
exactly.
it actually is at home there, even though he thinks he's not. In the whole first half of the movie, he feels out of place. And it's not only once he discovers who he actually is and how he can help his own community by the knowledge and the fact that he's a human. So there's things that he can do that they can't. I think then he finds his place where his home is. instead
Yeah.
of having to leave home and finding a new place. And that's a lot of the journey of coming of age and growing up. It's like you're figuring out, like, where do I belong?
Right.
And it is with the people that you love. And maybe those are not your home. Like some people don't come from, loving and supportive background,
Mm-hmm.
and they find their tribe somewhere else. But what I love about this movie is that Tarzan realizes that he can still be different amongst where he comes from. Really powerful.
Really
Also,
powerful.
too, I think there's a reading on this film that I think it's one of the quote unquote like wettest Disney movies ever made in terms of the sexual tension in this film. That you
Yeah.
can read this also as a sexual awakening for
Yeah.
Tarzan and Jane too. I mean, she comes into the movie dressed in full Victorian garb, and as the movie progresses, she loses more and more of her clothes to become freer. And at the end,
Yeah.
she has her little jungle outfit swinging on there with Tarzan, and you can really like the sexual tension between the two in an animated film. I've just never seen anything like that before, which is another part of coming of age too. Like,
Yeah.
that whole awakening that happens as you get older and start falling in love and all that. I think this movie, for a G-rated animated film, kind of mentions a lot or kind of touches on a lot of those sexual themes, which I also find just unique. And this movie I still think is just fantastic. And I love this movie a lot.
Yeah, I agree. No, that's definitely true. Like right from that whole hyena sequence that we talked about earlier, when he meets Jane for the first time, like he's protecting her and such, but there's just a lot of, like, to me, the frenetic energy and the color explosions and the movement of all of that is also representative of the sexual awakening side of things for both of them. And when the noise sort of calms down, how they sort of check each other out quite
Right.
literally
Yeah, exactly.
is very much in there. So no,
yeah,
the
they're both
movie
looking up each other's skirts at one point.
basically.
They literally are. Yeah.
I was not gonna say, but that's right.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
No, this is I was very happy to see it. Thank you for putting it on the list as well.
Cool. Yeah, and if people live in my neighborhood and hear me blasting Phil Collins in my car, that I hear that music going around, that's me blasting Strangers Like Me driving through the neighborhood. I just love this soundtrack too so much. Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now, or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.